I usually end up with this weird face because I'm trying to figure it out, and then it's recorded that way. So anyhow, Nathaniel, I talked to Nathaniel. I was introduced to him by somebody else who's speaking at the event. I don't know if she's going to jump on here or not. Melissa, she's also speaking coming up on February 21st. But I think she had some emergencies. She's running around today. But Nathaniel, and this is a big deal. He's a survivor of a school shooting, and he was actually shot. He was actually shot, and so a horrible thing. I'm going to let him tell his story at the event, but we'll get into it just a little bit. And we can probably use that as a good hook, right? As we start to get into some teaching and some training right now, we can use that as one of the hooks as an example. So Nathaniel, I'm really glad that we met. I'm glad you're here. You're also going to be in the Les Brown book. So that's really cool. You're going to get a chapter in our next book launch with Les Brown. So that's going to be really fun. How about Danny? You want to tell us a little bit about you, Danny? If you do, you got to unmute. I'd love to be able to see you. All right. How about Deborah? Deborah, are you available to unmute and show? Or
Deborah is here.
there you are. Are you able to show your camera?
Yeah, I'll put myself on camera.
Okay. There you
Hi.
are. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. The reason why I'm here, do I pronounce your name Raw or
Yeah, Raul. Yeah.
Raw? Okay, Raul. I'll say Raw.
Okay.
The reason why I'm here is I work with speakers. I'm not a speaker, but what I do is I work with speakers and I help them to get visibility. I help them to get speaking engagements, and
Cool.
I also help them to start podcasts. So I'm here to get tips and
All right.
to learn
Okay.
and to see what you have to teach me.
Super cool. I'm glad you're here. Where are you located?
I'm in Chicago.
Chicago. All right. And it looks like Danny left a message in here. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Where are you located, my friend? Where is it 6 in the morning in the world right now? Let's see if he replies. Oh, Singapore. Wow, super cool. Well, I appreciate you coming joining us here on the call, man. I don't know if you either got through email or maybe social media, but that's the magic of social media nowadays. We can literally talk to anybody all over the world. That was something I was actually going to talk about and teach a little bit, or I will. But one of the things, Melissa, and I think Nathaniel in the same area, they live in a small town in Texas. And talking to her a few times, she said, like, I'm in this small town, there's nothing here. And I said, all you gotta do is pick up your phone because the whole world is literally right here, right? So all right, let's get started. I'm happy that you guys are here. I'm just gonna do a quick introduction of myself, who I am and what I do and how long I've been doing it and all that fun stuff. So this is the shift I've gotten into, the vibrational mind, powerful thoughts, energy, and frequency. Oh, you know what? Do I have my books? Let me see if I can show you here. I've written 8 books, but my core books that I started with and teach out of them are Heal the Boy and the Man Will Appear. Subtitle, Learn the Importance of Understanding and Expressing Your Emotions. And then the second version I wrote is Transforming Childhood Trauma with God and Psychology. And what these books are, Heal the Boy and the Man Will Appear, they're my life. They're my experience. So, oops, went for somebody's trying to get in here. How do I let her in? It's my life, it's my experiences, right? So it's not necessarily for men, but it's just my story, and that's why it's titled Heal the Boy and the Man Will Appear. Let me see something real quick. For some reason, when I'm showing my screen like this, it doesn't let me let people in, and I don't know why. Let's see if it does it this way. No, it's not working either. All right, hold on. I'm gonna have to stop sharing just to do that. That's the problem, that when people come in late, and then I gotta change what I'm doing here. Let me see. I'm gonna let Nan in because she's also speaking at the event, and then after that, whoever shows up, they're gonna have to watch it online because we keep getting interrupted here. So Nan, welcome. How are you? We're getting started right now. We're having some fun. Let me open this back up.
Thank you,
So we can have no more interruptions. Where's
Deborah,
there
Amanda.
Oh, hey, Nan. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm doing good.
All right. We're getting
Yeah,
started
thank you.
right now. I'm gonna leave it like this. Can you guys see that screen pretty well? I'm gonna leave it like
Yeah.
this. That way, if somebody does want to jump in, I can easily access and let them in. So, anyways, my name is Raul Lopez Jr. I'm the founder of Tag Talks. TAG stands for Transparency, Acceptance, and Growth. And what I've been teaching since actually the beginning of this year is more of, like, I was introducing my books, but more of the science per se, the spiritual side behind why I teach what I teach. And it all has to do with our mind and our frequencies and our energies and where we allow ourselves to be, right? Mentally, physically, psychologically, and the whole thing. But the core of Tag Talks, Transparency, Acceptance, and Growth, is about sharing personal stories, right? And that's what my books are about. That's what I talk about. And that's what I teach, is the most impactful talk that you can have is your personal story, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's the foundation of Tag Talks and what I've been doing. I founded this company in 2017. We do events all over the place. Some of these are in California, Texas. We go all over the place. We set some up in Tampa. Mostly what we do is although I'm from Northern California, I've done a lot of events up here. I usually do my live events between San Diego and like Newport Beach area, some beautiful venues and connections that I have there that I've built over the years. So these are just some of the different events that I've spoken at. Some of them are mine. Some of them are people have hired me to come and speak in their corporate type gigs. I've done a lot of trainings. This company here, they were just starting their MLM company, and I was their spokesperson. So I wrote out a lot of their teachings and their trainings, and I helped them. So just to say that is, as you get into the speaking world and you're out there and you have the authenticity, I call it, and your people see you and connect with you. And I'm going to tell you how I connect with people in a little bit. Then people will want to hire you, right? Even if you're not selling something. In fact, this company I got a contract with, this was years ago. I got a 2-year contract with them, 6 figures a couple of times over. And basically what they did is they came to this event that's over here on the right-hand side. They were watching me speak there. After the event, this owner of this company he was just founding, it was an MLM type company, said, "Hey man, I want you to be my spokesperson. I want you to help me put events together." And he hired me to be their coach. So if you've ever seen a network marketing pitch, like they always want to send you a quick video. I was the guy. So they sent this video to millions of people all over the world. And I was the guy teaching and training, inviting them to come and join the MLM and that whole thing. But I was there as a spokesperson and their coach and trainer. So it was pretty fun. So when you get out there, right, some people may not realize this, but even just sharing your personal story, I say just, but I think that's, like I said, the most important story you can share. But sharing your personal story, people will connect with you. And again, I'm going to get into that. So I'm just giving some examples of different speaking gigs. This is a beautiful venue in Las Vegas where you can literally talk to millions of people all over the world. Here's some other places at my Tag Talks events. What we used to do is I do a bigger event, a couple of hundred people, and then we'd offer some kind of a training or a product. And then we do the training at this venue that I have in Newport Beach, right on the harbor. And then after we do the event with the VIPs, we'll take everybody out on a nice cruise. It's really fun. We go out there and we cruise around in the harbor in Newport Beach, and we just have a good time. I don't know, Ned, if you've ever been in that area. These are just more. This one in the middle is me teaching high school students, and how I got into speaking and sharing my story in the very beginning. I was called to go share my story with kids, right? In fact, this first book that I wrote was for kids in juvenile hall. That was my calling from above, to go help kids and not allow them or help them to not live the life that I had lived. And I'll tell you bullet points about that in just a second. So sharing my story with kids in juvenile hall, never thought about being a speaker, an author, or a coach, or having my own speaking forum. I just did what I was called to do and go help kids in juvenile hall. And the next thing you know, it's an entire business, and I've worked with thousands of people all over the world. It's been great, different celebrities and everything else. So again, these are my 2 core books that I was just showing you. First one, difference in these 2 really is the expansion of the things I've learned over the years, continue to learn. We're always learning. That's the difference in these 2. I have this book series, Success Leaves Clues, where I've worked with a few different people, celebrities like these guys, gone through programs and things with them. And then I just wrote out their 10 tips. And I continue this book series. Next, I'm doing Napoleon Hill. I need to get that launched. Another book series that I have is my Tag Talks book series. So part of our packages that we used to offer, speakers would come, they do multiple speaking gigs with us, and then we take their talks and we transcribe them, edit through them one time to make them from a talk to a chapter, put them in our book. And when they're done with this, some of them, we help them put their coaching programs together. So when they're done with this, they have professional videos of their talks. They're an author, they're in a book, and they have their coaching program ready to go. And they go out and they start their speaking and coaching careers. This book, you guys are all going to get the ebook at the end of this. I'm going to put the link in here and you can all download it. The Speaker's Blueprint, Unlocking Lucrative Speaking Gigs. Everything you need to know about speaking, how to speak, how to set it up. There's templates in there. There's who to contact and how to get gigs and the whole thing. Everything you need is right in that book. And, I'll teach you a little bit out of that book today. With our speakers, when we do our events, part of our package, like we said, we help them get their books written. If it's not their own individual book, then we put them in the anthologies. But we always set up booths for our speakers and sponsors and things that come out to the events. And then they have a great time selling their books, making their offers and things from their booths. We're not pitch fest at our events, so we don't have a whole bunch of people coming up and just pitching something over and over again. We allow our speakers to share their story, talk about who they are, why they are, and why they do what they do. And then they're welcome to go invite people to their booth in the back, and then they can make offers from their booths, promote their books, whatever it is that they want to promote. This is just some of the gatherings that we do, right? This is actually in the harbor where you see we did some masterminds and we do some networking events. We do them in different places. For those of you who like to speak and coach online, some of these show too, you can do it from anywhere in the world. Over here on the left-hand side, I did a complete 5-day challenge from my balcony in Cancun. I think I was in Cancun there. No, I might have been in Cabo in that one. And then over here on the fishing side, I was in Cancun there. And in between fishing and having some fun, I'm doing online teachings and trainings and things outside having fun. So if you want to be a coach or already a coach, or you're doing some speaking, there's a lot of speaking stuff that's done online, as you know. You can do it from anywhere in the world, fly around. The one at the bottom there, I'm in San Diego on my buddy. He has a penthouse on the 38th floor. We actually did an event on his balcony. So you can do live events, speaking events. You can do them anywhere and just enjoy and have some fun and change people's lives, right? That's the key. Like I said, I never planned to do any of this. It was just a calling, and I got into the industry, and it just grew and grew and grew because of authenticity. And I'm gonna get into that a little bit more. What else do I have here? Oops, let's see. Oh, I've been blessed to have some incredible celebrities and influencers at my events. Right here on the left is Tom Bilyeu. He has the Impact Theory. He sold he created a big protein brand in bars. I can't even think of the name right now, but he built that company. He sold it for $1 billion, I think within 5 years. And then now he's a big influencer, and he has his podcast. He teaches a lot of things. Over here on the right, Mr. Tim Story. I've spoken at his events. He's spoken at my events. We've had done some fun stuff together. Who else have I hung out with? Oh, this is David Meltzer. We did an event at the SoFi Stadium. And we did some speaking and training there. I was on his show, Office Hours, on his TV show. It's pretty cool. I think you can find it on Roku or Netflix or somewhere. There's that show's all over the place, but I was able to hosted some incredible people on that TV show. And some of our speakers who have come to the events, because David was speaking at our events, got to meet David, and they've also been on his TV shows and on his podcasts and everything else. So when we do the events and we bring in a lot of speakers, the speakers get a lot of benefits from who is in the crowd and who's speaking, because I make sure that everybody, gets to meet each other and talk to each other. I am doing my events coming up a little bit different, and I'll talk about that. Patty Stinger, Dan Fleshman. I'm actually about to do some stuff with Dan right now. I'm putting something together that I want to talk to him about. I've seen him at all kinds of different events. I talk to him quite a bit. Patty Stinger, if you guys, if you don't know who she is, she's like she puts couples together, I think, right? Like millionaire couples. She had a TV show and she'd put them together. I spoke at an event. This is actually on a huge yacht that fit 200 people. They brought me on to speak there, and she was one of the other speakers also. Mr. Robert from the Shark Tank. I was backstage at the Shark Tank. It was really cool. Got to watch them do their pitches and everything from the side. And then Kevin Harrington is an old shark, original shark, but he came and spoke at one of my events. All right, so let me get into a brief me and how I got into this industry, and then I'm gonna get right into the training. Okay, we are not going to go longer than an hour. Sometimes I have a lot of fun and I get into it and I go too long, but it's all fun and worth it. So who am I? Raul Lopez Jr. Why do you speak? Why did you start working with kids in juvenile hall? Before all of that stuff that I just showed you, this is where I started. Okay, I was had a young, wild, and crazy life. I'm going to bullet point this because it usually takes me 45 minutes to share it. But what I started with is very young, right? Mother, father, siblings. And when my mother married my father, she brought in 2 kids. And when my father married my mother, he brought in one, and then they had me together. So, right, family came together, his, hers, ours, the whole thing. Just fun. Grew up in San Jose, California, incredible life. Very close to my father. At the age of 7, my mother came home and she said, "Pack your bags, son, we're leaving." Right. And she didn't say pack your bags. She said, "Let's go for a ride," is what she did. And we went for a ride. And next thing I knew, I was in Alaska from San Jose. We got on a plane, went to Alaska, and it was fun. I got on a plane. It was cool. I got to Alaska, snow, snowmobiles, and all this fun stuff. But I woke up in the morning and I said, "Hey, where's my dad? Where's my daddy?" And she looked at me, she looked down, and she said, "Don't worry about your dad. You're not going to see him again." And at the age of 7, emotions I didn't understand, right? Learn the importance of understanding and expressing your emotions. I didn't understand emotions. I didn't even know what they were. So all of this sadness, confusion, just all of these emotions flooded through my body, and I didn't know what was going on, and I shut down. So from that very young age, I wouldn't do anything at school. I just sit there. I stopped playing. My childhood ended basically. And I got off path from a loving young child of light, like we all have been. And I hope you love your kids. Let them know you love them, teach them, train them, let them know how powerful they are. Too many of us don't, and our parents don't understand these things, and they don't do it on purpose, but they raise us the way they were raised, right? So my mom didn't realize how much that was going to break me. And it really did break me. In fact, the teachers used to call her when I was at school, and they'd say, "Something's wrong with your son. Like, he just sits there. He doesn't hear anything. He doesn't talk to anybody. He just sits there." And so she realized, that I was screwed up pretty bad. And we ended up coming back to San Jose, but I rarely saw my father. And I ended up on this wild path. By the time I was 9, I was doing drugs. At 13, I was in a gang, and I conceived my first child. And then at 14, I got incarcerated from just doing a lot of the dumb, stupid stuff that I was doing. I was taken from my mother. I was made a ward of the court. I was registered alcoholic by the age of 16. And then I was titled. This is a real title that I hate that they do. I didn't realize it was being so young. But in court, the way they took me from my mother is they titled me on paper a menace to society. That's a real legal title. He's a menace to society. We're taking from his mother. He cannot be on the streets. Nobody can control him. And so for the next 10 years, for the most of the next 10 years, I was in some type of facility, incarcerated, and homes and all this kind of stuff, ending up here, like I'd showed you guys, in San Quentin prison. During those years, I knew there was something wrong. I knew there was something wrong. I didn't like the way I felt. I always wondered, why do I feel this way? Why do I act this way? Why do I do these dumb things that I do? I always had those 3 questions. And when I got out of prison, I had some visions. I go deeper into this in my live events. So maybe you guys will come and check them out, or maybe even you'll speak at the event. But I go into this deeper, but I always ask those questions, right? And through those years, and when I was in prison, I had some visions. And I didn't know at the time they were from God, but I had these visions of a different life. So I knew there was more to life than what I'd been living. And so when I got out of prison, I just made a commitment to change. Like if you guys are into self-development, you've maybe heard many times that you are the 5 people you hang around, right? In all aspects, happiness, sadness, money, whatever it is, we are the 5 people that we hang around the most. They always say, like, if you hang around 5 millionaires, you'll be the next one, right? If you hang around 5 criminals, you'll be the next one. I promise you that. It works both ways. So somehow intrinsically, I knew if I didn't move from where I lived when I got out of prison, that I would go back, because everybody I was around went to prison. That was just the lifestyle that we had. And so I went to my parole officer and I said, "Hey man, I got to get out of here. Like if I stay here, I'm gonna go back, and I don't want to." And he said, "Well, you can't leave here. You're on parole. You got to live here for 3 years back in San Jose, Santa Clara County." And at the time, my mother had moved way up north. I don't know if you guys know California, but she moved way up north, past this little town. There's Santa Rosa, and then there's Healdsburg, and there's a little town called Cloverdale, way up north, right on the Russian River. And I said, "My mother lives here, and she has a side unit." She said, "I can rent it from her. I need to get out of here." So he told me, "You have to go to that parole officer there. I'll set you an appointment. You got to ask them if you can live there, right? Because they don't have to allow you with your criminal background." So I went, I asked them, and he said, "You can live in my county if you go to college," right? By this time, I'm 25 years old. I hadn't graduated from high school yet. And I was still I'd been the last 10 years and, gangster and all this, wild and crazy stuff. And so I started going to college, and I discovered, it took me 2 years, by the way, to get my GED before I could actually take a college course. And the place to get the GED was on the side of the college, Santa Rosa Junior College. It was on the side of the college. And that's why I took him paperwork that said, "Yeah, I'm in the college, look." And he said, "Okay." So it took me 2 years to get my GED. And then I started going to school, college courses, and I discovered psychology. Check this out. My professor who taught me psychology, she's Native American, teaching psychology, including she practiced her Native American spirituality. and she combined psychology and spirituality, and it blew my mind. I mean, have you ever seen, pictures of like how your neurons connect and new ideas that you have and these things? My mind was just on fire every day. I mean, I ran to that class to just study and listen and learn, because I was trying to figure myself out, right? And she was teaching me two things at the same time, right? The spiritual side of things and the psychology side of things. Now, I'm going to get into teaching right now. I just wanted you guys to know where this started for me. But what I found in the Psychology 101 book, if you guys have gone to college, everybody's taken Psychology 101. I'm reading the book. It's probably twice as thick as both of these, right? This big, thick Psychology 101 book. And I'm reading, and in this book, it says, and I'm going to paraphrase, if this happened to you as a child, you may act like this. If this happened to you as a child, you may feel like this. And if this happened to you as a child, you may do things like this. And it answered those exact three questions that I had all of my life, living through this wild and crazy time of my life, my youth, my young youth. And I was like, wow. And first I was just shocked that those questions there were answers to them, psychology, the science side of the mind. And then the second thing that came to me, I said, if it's in this book, if these answers are in this book, I'm not the only one who's been asking themselves these questions. That means millions of people are asking themselves these questions. So I was just shocked. And what I did is I went off my GE path, right? If it, under college, you're on the GE path and you go from one level to AA, bachelor's, and so on and so forth. I got off the path because I only wanted to study about the mind, the body, neuroscience, and all of these things. I wanted to figure out me, right? So I studied anything that I wanted to, not in their order, but I ended up studying all the way psychology to Stanford University. Never got a degree because I didn't study the certain math class and this class and that class that they wanted me to study that created the degree, but I just went off and studied whatever I wanted. So just for reference, if you're asking, as some people do, how did you get into Stanford if you weren't structured? Stanford has what they call continuing study courses, right? But you have to have, I think it was over 300 units. And I had plenty of units, right? So they said, you can come and take your units and you can go to school here on the continuing courses and take psychology, but you can't get a degree unless you go take three classes. And I honestly, I was like, I don't even care about a degree. I just want to understand. I want to understand me and people and how people function and why. Why do we do what we do, act the way we act, and feel the way that we feel? So with that said, I discovered the science side of the mind, right? Of the body, right? Psychology is science. Neural is science, right? Biology is science. What you eat matters. What we eat, what we drink, how we take care of ourselves, how we exercise, everything we do determines how we feel, act, and do. It's a science, right? So I always, that's why the subtitle of the second book is Transforming Childhood Trauma with God and Psychology, because there's two sides to it. And for me, I learned the science side first, honestly. I mean, I'd been introduced to church and God at a young age, but I wasn't following. And then when I learned the science side of things, I understood. And I was like, wow, I get it. I understand all of these things and why it happened and this happened and that happened. But I still didn't feel good. I still didn't feel right. And then that's where I met God. And when I started studying God and praying and meditating and all these things, then I had this incredible experience where God showed me myself at the age of 7. And I'll send you guys that talk if you want. Showed me myself at the age of 7 and showed that I had gotten heartbroken at that age of 7 when my mom and my dad separated. So in that experience, God also showed me all that he allowed me to experience in my life: streets, loving family in the beginning, streets, lost, broken, college, university, right? And then God said, hey, I want you to take all of this wisdom from the beginning to now and go start working with kids in juvenile hall. So that's what I started doing, just sharing my story in depth with kids in juvenile hall. And while I was in juvenile hall, before I'd written any of these books, one of the workers in juvenile hall, there was always somebody in the room while I was teaching and training in juvenile hall. He talked to me after I was done. He said, hey, man, he says, how much do you get paid to do this? And I said, to share my story? I said, I don't get paid. I just want to help these kids. And he said, do you know why you don't get paid? And I said, why? Right? I don't know. Why don't I get paid? And he said, because you don't ask. And I was like, what? I said, I'm just here to help these kids, man. It's a calling that I have. I just wanted to come and help these kids. That's it. And he said, look into it. This is an industry. Okay, now this was back in the late 90s, right? To give you my age a little bit. This was back in the late 90s. The term coach wasn't even there yet. It was still mentor back then. Mentor, consultant, that type of thing, right? And so I started looking up the industry, and I found like Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor. I found all these guys who were just changing people's lives and helping them. I was like, wow, this is great. So I did. I wrote this book for kids in juvenile hall. It's an easy read. I mean, people say they can read it in a few hours, right? Because I wrote it for kids, but it just took off. I get people sending me pictures all over the world, literally, what's your book? It's so incredible, and all this kind of stuff. And from there, I've written 8 books since then. But I never planned any of this, right? It was a calling that I had. Sharing my story in juvenile hall, started writing books, started coaching people because they asked me to. I didn't say I want to be your coach, because I started sharing at churches and then in prisons, right? And then in small groups where people say, hey, can you come and share your story here? It's so incredible. It's so powerful. And next thing I know, I had people coming to me saying, hey, Raul, I loved your story. My life was very similar to yours. Can you help me share my story? So I started helping people put their stories together, right? Hooks and the whole thing, and then getting there out there. Well, I got my story. It's ready to go. What should I do? So I started putting events together, and I'd bring everybody together, and we'd all share our stories and just have a huge impact on people, right? We'd all invite friends and family, and we'd do some marketing. We'd get people there, and we started teaching, and then we started coaching people. I started, helping people speak, helping people write their books, and just anything that I was doing, I helped people do. And I think that's the big difference in a lot of different types of training programs is people sell things that they're not actually doing. Right. All I do is help people do what I do. That's everything that I do. I'm going to show you how to do. That's kind of my programs and the things that I do. So that's kind of the gist of it. Now, with that said, like I don't know if you were all on here earlier, but I was talking with Nathaniel, right? And he's a young, incredible man. And he survived a real school shooting. He got shot during a school shooting in the auditorium at his school. He has a literal life-changing story. Right? There's so much wisdom that comes out of such a horrific thing. There's so much wisdom that comes from it. Out of, spending 10 years incarcerated, taking from my mother and all these things, the horrific story, there's so much wisdom that comes out of it. And I tell people all the time, and some of this that we're talking about right now, it all is something to understand, to put your personal story and talk together. Okay. Understand like the way I'm sharing, what I'm sharing, why I'm sharing it. It's part of the way to share your story, okay? To help people understand. First of all, for me, I help people understand why they should share their story, right? Because it'll change people's lives. And we've done very well with it all over the place. But imagine somebody right now, today. Now, I don't even want to use that example because it's horrible, but we'll talk about me. The example of somebody a kid right now, he's 16 and he's been taken from his mother and he keeps going in and out of jail. And then I'm able to go sit with him and share my story. It can change his entire life. I always tell people, your wisdom is the fruit off the vine. Do you understand what that means? Your wisdom is the fruit off the vine. So what I was told by above in this vision that I had was take what you've learned and share it. Go help people so they don't live the life that you lived, right? So your fruit is the wisdom of the vine. For example, an apple tree, the tree doesn't take the apple and eat it itself. That fruit is for somebody else to come and get the nourishment from it. So your wisdom is that fruit of the vine. It's for you to pass out. It's not for you to keep. God told me many years ago, like, hey, you need to share this stuff. It happened for you, not to you, but for you, but so you can share it with the world. Not too many people. There's a lot of great, incredible people that have come out of prison and changed their lives, but there's more that don't, and they never learn. I grew up in that family style, and there's still many family members that are in that life. And there's something, I don't know what it is, but there's something that some of us catch, some of us don't. And when you do catch it, you got to do the work and you got to help and you got to share with people, right? So the fruit of the vine, remember that your wisdom is the fruit of the vine. And then the other thing that I always tell people is that people, if you want to be the coach, people will pay you for your past to improve their future. People will pay you for your past to improve their future, right? Whatever fire you've come through and gained the wisdom from, there's somebody in that fire right now. So they need to hear your specific story because all of us have a different life. We've experienced them different ways and we've felt it different. So it's for all of us to be able to share. Okay. All right, let's get into some training. Y'all guys came here for some training, but I always love to just share a little bit about why I'm even here and what prompted me, what got me to be able to teach and want to teach and help people get on stages. Okay. So I'm going to start with the hook, and I'm going to do this one point. I'm only going to do three points today, but I'm going to do the hook. Okay. And then from there, I want to open up. I want to see what questions you guys have in regards to sharing your personal story versus doing a keynote speech or even a TEDx speech, I get a lot of people that come from TEDx to TAG, because TEDx is very structured. Nothing wrong with it. Great platform, but it's very structured and they regulate what you talk about, where we're more open, right? If TED stands for technology, education, design, we're transparency, acceptance, and growth. So we're more on the spiritual side of things. Honestly, we're able to talk about things that some platforms won't let you talk about, right? And I got people that come to me all the time. They're just like, oh, the freedom to just get up here and share. So I'm gonna say start with the hook, and then from there I'm gonna open it up and I'm gonna let you guys ask questions about your talks and things you have, and I'll teach from there. All right. So first, the hook. I hope we all understand what a hook is, and we're talking primarily about personal stories, but I think it works in any type of talk. You want to catch the attention, and the example I always use, it like in a book or even in a movie. How many people here have ever seen John Wick? I always use John Wick because I'm a big fan of John Wick. If you haven't, that's okay. But I'll tell you the scenario, and this is the same way you start your talk. At the beginning of one of the John Wick movies, all you see, it's a shoot-up movie, right? Fighting and shooting and stuff like that. All you see is this black SUV rolling super slowly, and you can see it's just completely shot up, riddled with bullets. It's rolling really slow, and it hits a wall. It just stops, and then John Wick, who is Keanu Reeves, falls out, and he's like laying there like he's dead, right? That's the start of the movie. And everybody's like, oh my God, did he die in this one? Like, what happened, right? Like, it caught you. It's the hook. It catches your attention. And then the movie starts from there. And then about 3/4 into the movie, you're at that scene that the movie started with, right? All of a sudden, you see how he ended up in that car and how he ended up laying there on the street. It's the same concept when you're speaking and you're sharing your personal story. You start out with a hook, or you start out telling them what you're going to talk about, what you're going to tell them, right? You start out telling them what you're going to talk about. You tell them, and then you tell them what you're going to talk about. You tell them what you talked about. Well, here's what I'm going to talk about. I talk about it, and then here's what I just talked to you about. Okay, that's kind of the framing. So I'll give you an example, and anything that I share about the speakers that I've worked with, I'm able to share as personal as it seems, because they've shared it on my stage, and we have video content, and it's on YouTube, and it's everywhere else. So I'm not sharing anything it may sound like, oh my God, are you sure you're supposed to share that? Yes, it's okay. I have permission. It's all over out there because they're people that I've worked with. One of the hooks that I helped one of my clients put together is he had a story of suicide. Okay. And he tried to commit suicide based on, as a young boy, he was molested by his baseball coach. And so he lived with it. You've probably heard these stories and the pain of it. It was hidden. He felt horrible about himself and all of these things. And at some point he tried to take his own life. So we went through his whole story. We went back and forth. We helped him put his story together. And then we were looking for a hook. And there's this one point about 3/4 into his story where he says, I was standing on my roof. I put a rope around my neck and I jumped off. And it's just like a punch, like, whoa, wow. And I said, that's your hook. I said, start with that and watch what happens. So he gets up even before he introduces himself, he gets up on the stage and everybody's in their chairs and they're back and they're listening. And he gets up and he says, hi. And I introduce him, right? And then he says, yeah, and he says that hook line, I was standing on my roof. And then as soon as he said it, everybody goes like this, what? Right? They get to the edge of their chair and they're listening to him the entire time. And he has an incredible, powerful story, the wisdom that he gained from it and why he's so passionate about it now and why he's sharing it. And then he gets to that point about 3/4 in, and then he finishes his story. And then he talks about the wisdom that he just shared. Okay. So that hook will grab people. They'll put them on the edge of their seat. And when you're doing a 15-20 minute talk, you have them the whole time. Right. And then there's also something that's about energy and interaction, right? Where you're bringing the crowd up and down. Because when I share my story, I talk about some things that are really emotionally sad. But if I don't bring the crowd back out of that, they're going to sit there like almost depressed. So you got to, once you take them to that part, you got to know how to bring them back up too. So like, oh yeah, this is inspirational, right? Because we're not sharing a personal story as a victim. We're sharing it as a victor, right? Here's what happened to me. Here's what I experienced, not what somebody did to me. Here's what I experienced. And from there, I've gained this wisdom from it. I realized this at this point, and I started to gain this wisdom from it. So a hook is a powerful punch. I call it a punch at the beginning of your talk. That's going to get people on their toes listening. They're going to want to hear the entire story. And then, we help you, we mold the entire story as we put it together. So starting with that hook. Okay. And then, and I'll tell you real quickly too, what I have, the next step I have here, and then I'll open for some questions. after you kind of punch them with their hook, and then that's kind of when the introduction comes in, right? You throw the hook, everybody's intention, and then you say your name. Hey, I'm Raul Lopez Jr. Before that happened, I want to tell you why that happened. I want to tell you how I ended up on that roof. And at that point, everybody's just like, yes, please tell us, right? So you introduce yourself, you talk about who you are, what you do, if you're a coach or whatever it is, about who you are, what you do, and how you got to that point. And then everybody is ready to listen, and they will listen. Now, next, one more thing before we go to questions. Corporate. Okay, that's personal stories that usually doesn't work in the corporate world, right? When I get hired to go to corporate gigs, they want me to teach leadership. They want me to teach the wisdom that gained from my experience, but they don't necessarily want me to tell their corporate about my experience, right? About like the prisons and all these types of things. But here's how I integrate that. Okay, so if you're going and speaking somewhere, because I've had clients ask me this, like, hey, I got my story. It's so powerful, but I don't know how to teach the wisdom without really sharing my story, right? So I did, I've done, because I've been in California, so I've done a lot of Bay Area, Silicon Valley. In the beginning of the year, I get hired a lot to go do some trainings and stuff there. But EXP, the big XP real estate company, hired me for one of their big masterminds they do up in Tahoe. And what I did is I started out introducing myself, kind of showing some of the stuff that I showed you guys, kind of just showing where I've been, the things that I do. And then I said, listen, I want to teach you guys some things about leadership. I want to teach you some guys things about taking action. But in order for me to do that, I really needed for you to know who I am. And I need to tell you a little bit about my personal story. Is that okay? Right? I asked permission. Is that okay? Can I share something personal with you? And they always say yes. They say yes. So now I got permission in a corporate function to share my personal story, right? And I get into it a little bit, and I talk about the darkness and the sadness and the emotions, and even what I shared with you earlier isn't. I mean, that's just a little bullet point of it. Like I said, if you guys should be on the email list by now, after this call, I'll send it out so you guys can watch the 14-minute version of my story. But that's another way, another hook. If you're in the corporate world and there are a few things that you want to share, because honestly, for me personally, there's a couple of things that I can't do. Okay. I cannot get into my wisdom and share the wisdom without sharing some of the things where the wisdom came from. Right. And then my wisdom came from streets and prison and college and, all the little bullet points that I told you about. The other thing I have a very difficult time doing, and I decided not even to try to stop, not to stop. I always talk about God. I'm not preaching. I don't try and change people's beliefs, but I cannot share my personal story without talking about God. Because if it wasn't for God, I wouldn't be who I am, where I am today in my life. Okay. I mentioned to you guys earlier about the science side, right? I discovered the science first, but I still wasn't healed. I didn't know that I had a childhood trauma. I didn't even know what childhood trauma. By this time in my late 20s, I didn't even know what childhood trauma was. Well, I started to learn it during the psychology. But then when I had this vision, and God showed me this vision, he actually showed me that it happened at the age of 7 and the entire experience. So those two things are big for me. I know there are some places, and I think TED might be one of them, where they don't really want you to talk about God or religious things. And I'll tell you, I don't preach. I don't try to convert anybody. I don't do altar calls or things like that. I'm not against them at all, but I don't do that. That's not what my events are about. It's just that early on, and in fact, that's why I wrote the second version. Early on, when I wrote this first book, I got some really bad advice. And the advice was that the editor asked me, is this a Christian book? And I said, no, it's not. It's just my story, right? And she said, well, you talk a lot about God in this book. And I said, well, it's my story, right? And she said, well, if it might turn the secular world off, right? And I really didn't understand it, because to me, I could look and I go, well, it doesn't say anything on the cover about, God or anything. It's just inside, right? She said, it might turn them off, and you want as many people as you can to read it. So maybe take some stuff out about God. So I listened. That's the big mistake I made. So I listened to her. And I said, okay. And then I was also told the same thing about speaking. Don't talk so much about God, because you might turn off the audience. One day I'm on stage. I'm speaking to a group of 150 men. I'm sharing my story. And there are parts where I would usually talk about God, and I would cut them out, right? As soon as I was about to say, this is what happened with God, God showed me this, God showed me that, I would cut those pieces out on stage in front of 150 guys. God just, what I say, smacked me in the most loving way. I almost started to cry. And he said, God said this to me. He said, how can you share your story without talking about me? I mean, just to say that now, it gets me, right? Because there's so much truth to it. I mean, I'm not one of those people who preach and be like, oh, we're sinners and without God, we're nothing and all that type of thing. But without God, I wouldn't have healed. I wouldn't have seen some of the things that I've seen and understand today, right? So with that said, I learned this. Take what God gave you and pass it on. And don't worry about if they like it or not, because it's God's job to touch people. It's our job just to share the wisdom. And in that triangle, a pastor showed me one time, and he didn't mean to show me the triangle. That's the way he goes, take what God gave you and give it away. It's up to God to touch them. Don't worry about it. If they get offended, if they like it, they don't like it, it doesn't matter. Just share what God gave you. That's why the subtitle on this is Transforming Childhood Trauma with God and Psychology, because I added back all the God stuff in it. And that was the second version of it. All right. Good stuff. Who has a question about their talk and the structure of their talk based on like the hook and what do you do from there? Any speaking questions? Let's see who needs some help here. Anybody want to raise their hand, or I can just continue? Come on, somebody has to help me out here. You got questions will trigger some incredible. All right, Amanda, let's go. There you go.
Thanks.
Sure.
So yeah, I've been doing a talk about one of the ways that I learned I got some of my wisdom was because I used to always shun people who had a mental disability. Like growing up my whole entire life, I would be afraid of people who I didn't understand what they were thinking, or maybe they couldn't talk. And so I got blessed with a son who has Down syndrome, and I didn't know until the moment. Here's when I found out. This is what I think would make a good hook, to start with the moment I looked in his eyes, because I didn't know. I looked into his eyes, but I was pulled into another dimension. And in that dimension, I was floating. I saw a star and I thought, how far is that? And I was there.
Yeah.
Whoa. And then I looked at another one and I was there. And I thought, wow, I was so peaceful. And I thought, anything is possible. Anything is possible in this other dimension, looking into my child's eyes. That is what I read. And then when I came back out and I was in the hospital room, I was like, oh, well, let me try feeding them some milk, And I was doing that, and the doctor came in and she said, oh, did they tell you about this baby? I said, what do you mean? We think he has trisomy 21, Down syndrome. And to me, in that moment, I feel like I don't often share the other dimension part, but without that, I would not have taken that news as well as I did.
Yeah. Wow.
Of my past history. And I was able to, in that moment, think I always ran away, but this time I can't. This time I won't. This time I'm going to learn, and I'm going to be the best mom this little boy could ever ask for.
Yeah. Wow.
And then go into, talk about the things that we've learned together. But so my question is, with that story, do you think the other dimension thing would be a good hook if I could work that in there?
My view on that is 100% yes, and I think it's important. You saw the title of this was Vibrational Mind Frequency. I stared away from talking about those types of experiences that I've had, because I've been told they're too eccentric, they're too mystical and things like that, and people won't understand. But there's a point where we share what we've experienced, and it's real, and you'll be shocked how many people have experienced those things, but they're scared to talk about them. Right. Yep. And they'll either say, oh my God, that happened to me too, or they'll pull you aside after you're done and they'll go, that happened to me, but I haven't told anybody. Right. So we all have these experiences, and, talking about studying psychology, for so many years, I've always been a student of psychology. We're conditioned by where we're raised, right? Catholic, Christian, whatever it is, by religion. And sometimes we feel like I can't talk about that because the church said that's the devil, or just this weird stuff. Right. So we don't want to talk about it. But in the last few years, I'm like, these things I keep having these experiences. I keep having these visions. The star thing, I've had that exactly that. Right. And it's I don't know what it is, but enough people experience these things where it is something, right? It is something. So the answer is yes. I think you should really put that together, a very short hook around that. And it'll catch people's attention, right? And I'll tell you, it'll catch their attention whether they're interested in it or if it kind of offends them. Either way, they're going to listen because they want to know what you're going to say next. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example of that. I'm a UFC guy. I've been watching. I used to train and fight and everything for many years. And my son now, he's 18. He's a cage fighter. Anyhow, McGregor, if you know UFC, there's a guy named McGregor, and he was one of the champions and stuff. But he used to piss people off. Like the reason he's so well known is because half the world hates him and then half the world loves him, right? But Dana White, who is the president of UFC, says he makes so much money, we make so much money because half the world or half the fans, they want to see him win, but the other half watch because they want to see him lose. So either way, you get the attention. You know what I mean? Either way, you get the attention. So that type of hook, it may kind of startle people or they may not be interested in it, but they're going to want to hear what you have next, right? And in my opinion, again, I think more will take it on and want it than won't. So yeah, I think you should make that your hook.
Cool, thanks.
All right, you're welcome. Nan, did you have something?
Yeah, I want to talk about what I'm going to talk about. I mentioned about a personality kill, and then I talked with my friend. She said, "Oh, they maybe people may misunderstanding. What I want to talk about is that appears no harm, but actually is dangerously killing harm." There are two things I talk about. One is the verbal violence.
Verbal violence, okay.
Yeah, in healthcare especially. And
Okay.
another one is the doctor said anything you are concerned about, that's just the aging. You know, that sounds appears no harm at all, but actually is killing. I have experience. I have my own experience and others' experience, and my friend dying from the verbal. Not from that, at least it's a trigger for that. So I'm still, process that emotion. I'm associate these two areas into the emotions. So what we are emotion, we have that emotion. Oh, this emotion has to somebody to look at. I started with my story. I feel my fear go back to work. So when I think about on the Sunday, I try, driving with my friend, and suddenly I was shaking in driving. So I went to the ER with a stroke alert. Because all this went from the fear of going back to the violence work. One of my coworkers died with. So I started with that. And another story about the doctor dismissed the concern with one patient. They have something, and then they pass down this blaming to this very dedicated doctor. And I watch that doctor explain what he get from the patient's daughter. I feel hurt. So I don't I do have direct harm on you, but when I watch others suffering, I suffer more. So it's not the first time I heard your story, but I still want to cry. I still feel like I feel the pain. I always think how I can help. I have that thing to help, but how I can help. So that's what I'm, so how I can.
Okay. So you're so awesome. I love you, Nan. Because you do have that heart. I know from the beginning when we first met and we talked about, what you spoke about before at the events. And I like where you're going with the emotion thing. Okay. And one of the things that I talk about when we talk about connecting with the audience, regardless of the story, right? The emotion, here's what I learned. Emotional pain is emotional pain, and people relate to it because it is a frequency, it is an energy. And even if it's a completely different story, the emotional pain is the same understanding. Okay. I think I've told you guys, I didn't say it today, but a lot of times when I get what I started realizing is that when I be done with my talk, my full talk, like what Nan is talking about, she's heard it a few times. I always got a line of people and they want to talk to me. And I've heard this over and over again. Raul, oh my God, it's a great story. My life was just like yours, but different. And I'd be like, what do you mean different? Well, I didn't go to prison and I wasn't taken from my mom. And it was a completely different life. But they say, but I don't know, it was just like your life. And after hearing that so many times, what I realized is emotional pain is emotional pain. They felt my story. And just as much as they heard it, they felt it. And that's what connected their heart to mine. Okay. That is the authentic draw. It's not a trick. It's not a trick. It's not a way to sell things, but that's the authentic draw that'll bring people to you. And if you do have a book, right? If you do have a coaching program based on your story and the fire you've been through and the wisdom you're sharing, they're going to want it if they related with your story. That's why, in my opinion, more important than anything else is sharing from stage a personal story and then being able to offer your tools and your wisdom that you've gained from that. People will pay you for your past to improve their futures. And it's okay. That's the thing that a lot of us don't understand in the beginning. Like, oh, I don't want to ask them for money. I just want to help them. Yeah, but how you can help more people when you're getting paid for it, right? And you lived through that fire. I lived through a lot of it was self-created, but based on being broken and lost, right? I learned a lot from all of that. So as I share it, juvenile hall, yeah, I send books to juvenile hall all the time. Right? I don't charge them. I send books and I work with kids and everything else. But I can do that for free because I charge people for other things, right? So yeah, and then the emotions that you want to talk about it. Okay. The portion that you're talking about where you feel bad, that's a completely different thing. I don't see that so much for your talk, but that's more for an understanding that I think that we'd call an empath. And we got to be careful with that. Okay. I understand that, right? Because the reason we share our story, the reason a lot of us want to be coaches, the reason we want to help people come through their traumas is because we understand the pain, man. And it's like, and we don't want anybody to suffer that pain. And when we see it, we empathize, right? You know the difference between empathize and sympathize, right? Empathize, I feel it, I experienced it, I lived it. I know, right? And that's why I think God called me to juvenile hall, because there wasn't anything, with the exception of a couple of things, there wasn't much anything that these kids didn't experience that I hadn't. So I could truly empathize with them. However, with that said, what I realized is that we also have to stay in our power, and we have to know that what we're teaching is from healing, like I mentioned earlier. And that the wisdom points, we haven't got into that yet, and we've just got a few more minutes. So I'll do wisdom points on the next call, maybe next week. But our wisdom points that we are teaching, we got to understand that we're teaching from being healed as a victor, and we're sharing this information, right? So what happened to me, and I think this is something that you need right now. What happened to me is I picture myself like standing on the top of the ocean, on the water, right? And I'm powerful and I'm teaching and I'm training, but I would connect with all these other people who are still in their brokenness, and I'm helping them, but I start to sink in the water, and I start to sink in the water. And next thing I know, I'm 50 feet under the water, just carrying all of other people's pain. And it stopped me. It broke me. It was too heavy. And I was like, I don't know what to do anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And then what I realized is I allowed other people's pain and agony and everything they're going through to weigh me down, instead of me just passing on the wisdom and helping them to grow. I allowed it to weigh me down. So you have to understand, sharing your story, talking about emotions and all of these things. Yes, you need to share that. That's, in my view, that's the title of my books, right? Understanding these things, helping people understand what their emotions are, but don't allow it to bring you down, because sometimes we can't do anything, right? All we can do, what's the most biggest cliche there is? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You know how many people that I've coached, and it used to frustrate me, sometimes it still does, that I've coached and I've worked with, and they don't do the work. They don't do anything to shift it, to change it. You know what I mean? So share the emotion, share the story, but don't allow it to affect you when they're not listening, or when you feel too bad. Don't try not to allow that to affect you. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We've got about 2 minutes left, but if anybody else does have another question about the structure of their talk, I'd love to answer it. And then I want to show you a little bit about our event that we have coming up. Anybody else?
Hey, hi.
There she is. Hey, Melissa, how are you?
Good. I'm shopping, but I'm trying to multitask.
You're shopping. All right.
Yeah, I had to take a friend, but so I have a question. So I watched someone speaking and their hook was like, they just said like words, like for instance, trauma, PTSD, triggers, and healing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how they got their hook. They said that and then they introduced themselves and what they were going to do, what their why was. So I didn't know if like you thought that was good or not.
Okay. The hook should be a sentence that wants people to hear the story. So if I heard you right
Okay.
right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I heard you right, you're thinking about like a starting a story or your message with like, hey, I've been through trauma, I've been through this, I've been through that. And if that's what you mean, that usually doesn't work because it doesn't catch anybody's attention. And I'll give you an example, and this is a little bit different, I think, than what you're asking. But I've known a guy for many years, and he has an incredible story, but he always starts out bragging about what he has. Yeah, I have private jets and I got 5 Ferraris and I have this and that. He starts out his message like that, right? And what happens is instantly, instead of people coming to the edge of their chair, they sit back and go, so what? Like, who cares what you have, right? So he starts out trying to catch their attention with these things that he has. But the truth of his story is back in 2008, he lost everything that he had. And he was sleeping in his 1997 Explorer while he was trying to regrow his business. And then he regrew his business up to 10 Ferraris and private jets and all this really cool stuff that he had. So I used to try and tell him, your story, people want to know about you sleeping in the Explorer. They don't need to know yet about your Ferraris and all that type of thing. That loses people's attention. So the hook in the beginning, like his hook should be, yeah, I was sleeping in my car. I was sleeping in my 1997 Explorer and I was hating life. And people who know that he has Ferraris are going to be like, what? You were sleeping in your car? And they're going to get to the edge of your seat and they're going to want to listen and hear his whole story. And then when he gets to the part about his successes, his financial successes, people are going to be like clapping, like, heck yeah, if you could do it, I can do it too. So the hook, I think Melissa, you and I did talk a little bit about your hook. Do you remember what it was? Because I've talked to so many people in between. What did we talk about?
We talked about like me starting off with like an experience I had.
Okay, and like I'm trying to remember, and I think I do, but it was something to the effect of this. I'll just make something up. I remember what it is, but it's hard to say it without saying it. You don't want to share it right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was in an abusive relationship for 13 years.
Uh-huh.
I woke up with a deep sweat and fear. I saw lights shining through that window. Fearing for my life, I thought I was in danger, but then realized that I was in the present, and I thought I was reliving a past experience of domestic violence. So those sirens and lights were not for me. So I had a PTSD episode.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So in short, what we had brought your hook out to be was as if it was real, right? A very short sentence about what you were experiencing as though it was real, and then you said, but then I realized it was just PTSD. Right? That's going to catch people. They're going to be like, what do you mean? What happened? And then from there, you can go into your story and it'll catch everybody's attention. So yeah. So the hook, it's very important that the hook that and the reason they call it a hook, right? Because it goes around like this, right? That's why it's called a hook. It's very important that the first few sentences, they lead into that part of your story. So about 3/4 in, that hook should be back here. And now you're telling how that happened, right? Like the movies I was kind of talking about. So good. That's good. That's what the hooks are for. I'm gonna go into wisdom points next time, how we use them, where they come from, and the stories. Again, I didn't want to go over an hour, and I'm a little bit over now. But for those of you watching online or that see this replay, this is the event we've got coming up in February 21st in Southern California. She's only 74 days away. We're gonna talk about how to do we're gonna do a full-on speaker training in addition to some of the psychology things we're talking about, some of the spiritual side of things. We're going to do some business. I'm working on a guy right now who just sold his company for 50 million. So we're going to talk about like some startups and building your company and marketing. It's going to be an incredible event, business, and how to use your personal story in business. Okay. So my events are very unique. and you're going to love it. These are some of the people that have attended our events. Right now, these are the three core trainers, me, myself, Roxana, and Mary Lee. And then we have some other speakers coming up. I still need to add some pictures here, like Nathaniel, I'm going to add your picture here. Nan, I'm going to add your picture here. Melissa, I'm going to add your picture here as our speakers. So that'll be coming up soon. If you want to go to this website, you can see it's officialtagtalks.com. You can see these videos, some of the testimonials and fun stuff that we do. These speaker packages are sold out. I do have a program that I'm offering right now. I'll tell you just straight up, it's $997. And it does include a chapter in the book. That's what Nathaniel just jumped into. To attend the event, it's $200. Anybody who is speaking, attending the event, or just has referrals and wants to bring some people to the event, they get 50% of that. So if I'll send you a link. If somebody gets a ticket, you get $100. Okay, or half of that really is, after the 197. And it's just the page, a lot of the different stuff that we've done at our events, a lot of the different speakers we've had, the different celebrities, the fun, different locations, the stages. Again, it's Tag Talks, officialtagtalks.com. Bunch of testimonials. You can see all these different people who have spoken and that really enjoyed our events. And then down here at the bottom, we have our sponsors. We'll be adding some sponsors to this. We got some new sponsors coming in right now. So that's the event. Grab that link. Those of you that are watching this online or the replay, officialtagtalks.com, you can find it there. And then let me see. Did this switch over? Let's see if this switched over or not. Can you see that? Does your story sell? Sometimes when I switch from one tab to another, it doesn't change. What do you see, Nan? Do you see Les Brown showing on your screen right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the 997. And what I'm doing right here is a chapter in this book, and the way we usually do it, it's minimum $10,000. Okay. And there's all kinds of extras that come with it, and your own custom coverage, just you and Les Brown, and all these types of things. But a lot of people, it's a high ticket. It's $10,000. So some people can't manage that. So what I did, I think last year, maybe the year before, is I did a book with like what you see here, where everybody gets a chapter in the book, and it's not just them and Les Brown on the cover, but everybody's as collective is on the cover. And then you have options to get some author copies for like $5 or something like that. And then you're titled, and you're in, Amazon and Barnes and Nobles and all that. Your name is titled as an author, co-authored with Les Brown. So what I'm doing with that is I'm giving the chapter. We're going to launch this book on February 21st at the event. So we got to get everybody's chapters in right now. But for $997, you get a chapter in the book, your story in the book, and then you also we're going to interview or spend some time at the event on stage. So this is one of the offers that we're doing right. Well, it's literally the only offer that we're doing right now, because what I'm doing different this time than what I used to do at my events is I would have a whole bunch of speakers. This round, we're not going to have a ton of speakers. We're doing 1.5 days, so it's an easy to attend and be there. I'm going to put this link in the chat here if you want to go there. And then we're going to have about maybe 6 speakers max. We're going to have, my plan is to have 5 core trainers, and then in between we'll have some speakers who do 7 to 10 minute talks, and it'll be an impactful event, like I said. Right now, depending on the sponsors that come in, I'm shooting at, my goal is to be more intimate, about 50 people, but these sponsors are coming in, we may get to 100. So I'm going to get a room for about 100 people. Most likely in Newport Beach, but somewhere between San Diego and Newport Beach. I'm locking that in right now. In fact, I'm driving down SoCal this week, and I'm going to make sure I get a venue for us. So I thank you guys all for being here. If you have any questions, I'm assuming you guys already have my email because you've registered for this call. Feel free to email me. If you need some links or any other information, let me know. And I'm going to do this call again next Monday. I'm planning on Monday, depending on, I might not be in town, maybe Tuesday. I'll do the next call. And what I'll do in the next one is I'll go into what I call chunking. Okay. Chunking and your wisdom points, meaning your story may start out with 15 to 20 minutes, but it should be from a 20-minute talk all the way to a 90-minute talk. And a 90-minute talk is more where you're offering a product at the end. The last 30 minutes, you're offering whatever it is that your services are, right? And so when I say chunking is, we'll pick out during your training certain wisdom points that you talk about in your talk, and you might have 5 of them, you might have 10 of them. But depending on how long your talk is, you put those chunks in, okay? So you might have a 15-minute talk, and you just put 2 or 3 of those chunks in, those 3 of those wisdom points. But if you're going for an hour, then you put in 5 of them. And you're teaching, you're training while you're doing your 90-minute talk. Okay. So we're going to get really in depth into that next week. Nathaniel, I got a couple of emails coming over to you. Melissa, let's connect. I still got to interview you, Melissa, and then Nathaniel, I want to interview you also. Oh, Nan, all of you guys are all speaking. So we got to interview all 4 of you guys in the next, couple of weeks or so. I will be traveling later on at the end of this week. But we'll definitely set something up. All of you guys have my phone number, so reach out anytime. Danny, I appreciate you being here. I don't know if you're going to ever come to California and hang out, but if you want to, we can work something out where we interview online. If you want to be in the Les Brown book, you can be in the Les Brown book, and we can do an online event where you can speak and share there. But I'd love to talk to you more about that. Or if you feel like coming to California in February, come on out and hang out at the event, and you'll have a wonderful time. Nen has been there a few times. You know, they're impactful. I appreciate you, Nen, coming out multiple times. You and a few other people were getting back. Jonathan Dean, you remember Jonathan Dean? He's coming back out this time again. So we're bringing the old tag crew back out who have spoken many times just because we have such a great time. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. I hope you got a lot out of it. Continue what you're doing, and I will see you guys next week. Send me an email if you have some more information that you need. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.